Israel's Supreme Court may rule today on whether Palestinian families can be evicted from their homes in the neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah in East Jerusalem. It's the final hearing in a case that has dragged on for decades and which sparked protests and a new war with Hamas earlier this year. DW's Tanya Kramer reports.
The neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah has been home to Muna al-Kurd and her family for decades. Just one of several Palestinian families facing eviction in occupied East Jerusalem. Israeli settlers claim the land belongs to them, and a lower court in Israel ruled in their favor. As a last legal resort, the Palestinian families filed an appeal with the Israeli Supreme Court. It is possible that they reject the appeal and therefore it means eviction. What do I tell you? It may be possible that they accept the appeal and therefore to ask that the court be postponed. All probabilities are possible, but I imagine that as usual it will be in favor of the settlers and not in our favor as Palestinians. Her family had already lost parts of their house to Israeli settlers a decade ago. Muna al-Kurd has been documenting the recent protests against the eviction for social media. Across the street, settlers have already taken over this house and others, waging a lengthy battle through Israeli courts. Chaim Silberstein says the land belonged to Jewish owners in the 19th century. He wants to re-establish a Jewish neighborhood here.
And there were dozens of Jewish families that lived here until 1948. And we communicated with them and we brought in a group of investors and we purchased their rights to this property in 2003. And then began a process of clarifying the legal status of the Arab tenants of this neighborhood. And the process went through the court system until it reached the Supreme Court.
After the Israeli-Arab War in 1948, Sheikh Jarrah was taken over by Jordan, which offered housing there to displaced Palestinian families. Today, Israeli law prevents these families from claiming their lost properties in Israel.
One law was legislated in 1950 saying that Palestinian property that was lost in Israel in the War of 48 can be taken by the government and the Palestinian owners cannot get it back. Another law is a law from 1970 and it's applied only in East Jerusalem, and it says that Jews who lost their property in East Jerusalem in 48 can get it back.
Muna's family had fled Haifa and was resettled here in 1956. I just want to ask anyone who sees us in this video, imagine yourself in my place. You live in your house with all of your memories, then someone knocks on your door and demands that you get out. This is not your house. This has become my house. Would you accept this? Nearly every Friday, a protest in support of the families is held by a group of Israelis. The EU and other international organizations have expressed sharp criticism of the pending eviction. All eyes are now on Israel's Supreme Court and its decision.
And DW's Tanya Kramer, who filed that report, joins us now. Tanya, how is the Supreme Court expected to rule in this case today?
Well, as we heard in the report, this is considered to be one of the last legal resorts for the four Palestinian families. Actually, what we're expecting today, the families had filed a petition for an appeal with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court would then decide today on whether they accept this petition. So what we're also expecting today is hear from their defense team, from their counsels, is that they will present possibly new evidence when it comes to the ownership rights of the places there. So we're expecting today that the court will take a decision in what has been a very, very long court case.
Now, there are many property disputes between Palestinians and Israelis, Tanya. Why is Sheikh Jarrah such a flashpoint?
Well, Sheikh Jarrah is a Palestinian neighborhood in occupied East Jerusalem, and the families there are actually facing eviction. This had been a lengthy court battle in favor of a settler organization who claims that it owns the land. A lower court in Israel had decided already earlier this year that the families can be evicted. So, of course, this will have also political implications. But what will be the outcome is if the court rejects the appeal, the families could be evicted. It's not yet clear whether this will be also then be implemented, and it could send also signal to other families in similar cases.
Now, this eviction case contributed to the horrible violence that broke out back in May. The big question, of course, Tanya, is are there fears that today's court decision could reignite that conflict?
Well, absolutely. It has been, it has quietened down in the past couple of weeks, but we've seen back in April and May, we've seen a lot of protest, and it was considered to be one of the reasons as well for the outbreak of a military conflict. At least Hamas claimed that it will defend Jerusalem. It was a conflict between Hamas and Israel over Gaza. But of course, we have to wait and see what the decision is today by the Supreme Court and how they will go forward if this decision is taken.
Tanya, thank you very much. DW's correspondent in Jerusalem, Tanya Kramer.